Butt Kicker Gamer 2. What you see and what you hear is what you feel. Butt Kicker. The future is feeling.
Hey there, I'm Nicholas Dubois, co-founder of Advanced Sim Racing. We are a Canadian company. So what we did here today is for a real petrol head. He's really passionate about cars, as you can see behind me. We did a turnkey solution for him based on his needs. We try to gather as much information as we can on our client. And like we did today, we install a D-Box system. We install ultra-wide cube control steering wheel. We try to provide the best quality for your budget. So let's say if you want a budget of 10 grand, we're gonna give you something that's the best for 10 grand. If you want 20 grand, then we always try to stay within your boundaries. We do try to make it as easy as possible. So the client, once we install everything, it's pretty much gonna be a turnkey. So he's gonna press start on his computer, and right after, we'll try to explain everything, how it goes, how it works, and then he's ready to go. Our aluminum is from USA, treated in Canada, cut in Canada. So we do sand all our aluminum piece just to make sure the powder coat sticks to it. And that's one of the reasons why we use powder coat, is to make sure you have the best aluminum finish in the industry. And our quality is beyond what you can get with any other competitors right now. We are really, really passionate about all the gear, all the cockpits, all the sim hardware, and that's why we want to create something that's really gonna reflect our passion into our product. Come visit us at advancedsimracing.com. You can always reach us if you have any questions. You can call us, you can text us, you can go on Facebook, like our page, ask us questions over there, and we'll make sure to answer every questions there is. We are very passionate about what we do, and we try to make it as easier for you to go into the sim racing world, because there's a lot of gear, there's a lot of options, but let us guide you through your process, and let's hope you'll be an Advanced Sim Racing customer.
After a thrilling start to the season in Japan, the top drivers in the PRL's F3 Series powered by VCO head to Napa Valley to see how they fare out in the first American stop of the schedule. It's round 3 of the season, and it's at iRacing's virtual Sonoma Raceway here on RaceSpot, as well as VCO Esports. Good evening, everybody. My name's Justin Prince. Alongside me for tonight's action is Connor Rematic as we get ready to go racing in wine country. It's one difficult track, to say the very least, on the docket tonight. And after some of the challenges from Japan, some drivers hope to conquer this circuit to try and rebound coming into tonight.
This is certainly a circuit that's going to test the drivers here, Justin. It's very, very tricky indeed. Of course, made famous largely, of course, in the IndyCar series. Of course, NASCAR have raced here a good handful of times as well. But Formula 3s, well, that's a little bit of a different beast compared to those machines. So I'm very interested to see how these guys get on. And of course, we've got that pit stop hanging over us towards the middle of the race with that tricky pit entry.
That's going to be a major talking point throughout this entire evening. Another talking point, how things are faring out when it comes to the title fight, because we were discussing things before today, and 3 drivers are dominating from the pro side. Here's the thing that connects them all. They're all hardpoint by Delta Sport drivers. Connor Wagner, David Holland, Rod Clonard come into today 1, 2, 3 for their team, with the TQE and Precision Racing Esports driver Michael Diaz, a defending series champion, in 4th. Don't forget about Inyori, he was rounding up the top 5 for TQ Engineering Connery. It's still early in the season, but when Wagner and Holland hit the racetrack, they've showcased they've been quick. 1-2 in the first 2 races for them.
Yeah, they have been very, very, very dominant so far, but you know, just because the start of the season has gone well for them doesn't necessarily mean those sorts of performances will carry on into the later couple of rounds. We've seen so many times a driver that's been further down the field in the first half of a season have an absolutely stonking second half, and then all of a sudden they're up there fighting for the title, especially if Wagner and Holland are not going to be consistent with their top placings at the end of these races. So they can't get complacent here, Justin. Just because they've got off on the right foot doesn't mean they can just start to pull things back and start to play things a little bit more conservatively. You have to be on it for every single race.
Absolutely, and especially when it comes to the schedule, we were talking about things as well throughout the season so far. Here is a look at that schedule. Fuji and Suzuka brought plenty of challenges for some, especially Fuji to start off the season at a brand new racetrack to the platform. But of course today at Sonoma, a track you normally don't see these days, the Lara F3 competition, but you also have Alton Park, Red Bull Ring, Phillip Island, all in this stretch coming up, Connery. This mid-portion of the campaign will be treacherous for some.
Yeah, it absolutely will as well. I'm looking forward to that event at Alton Park. Nothing like a bit of a home race for me here in the UK, but yeah, it's an absolutely incredible calendar. Of course, you know, Sonoma is a fantastic circuit as well, but I'm looking more forwards towards Alton, Red Bull, potentially even Spa as well. I mean, I say potentially even Spa. It's definitely going to be a Spa. That's pretty much 90% of people's favorite road course. With you know, Road Atlanta being our final round of the season on the 25th of August. So a lot to look forward to here in the Formula 3 series in the Precision Racing League Championship. And well, we currently do have qualifying going on for the event here at Sonoma. And well, we can pull up those standings in just a little bit.
Indeed, lots to discuss, but plenty to talk about when it comes to those tuning in for the first time. Quickly talk about, if we can, Connery, a bit of the format here, because for those tuning in for the first time, early on in the campaign, 40 minutes up on the clock, essentially, you have 30 minutes to qualify for your best time, solo qualifying, to be able to set your best time for the starting grid here in this series. But don't forget, it's 50% fuel, meaning with the open setups, you must take a pit stop in this series, usually in these races. It's not mandatory, Connery, but it's expected around 25 minutes in.
Yeah, it really is, and we've seen how these sorts of pit stops can affect things in events previous. We've seen it less be due to things like the undercut or the overcut, but more just trying to find a right time to be able to come down in and not get lodged in that mid-pack, which can fight very furiously. And well, if you've come down towards the pit lane as a front runner, they're still yet to pit. They're still fighting you for position, so they're absolutely within their rights to fight tooth and nail for those places back there. So the worst thing you want to do when you're a leader is come down in and then come immediately back out in a big trailer cars that you're finding it almost impossible to get past.
As qualifying gets underway, we'd like to take the time to remind you of tonight's presenting sponsors for the PRL's F3 series, and powered by VCO, the virtual competition organization. Tonight, also brought to you by Advanced Sim Racing. Owned and operated by passionate sim racers, Advanced Sim Racing designs and builds the sturdiest and most durable aluminum profile racing simulation cockpits available in the market today. PRL members also get a 5% discount on ASR products using the Precision5 coupon code. Tonight, also brought to you by RaceLab apps. RaceLab helps you improve your driving skills. With modern overlays, race statistics, and native VR integration, you get the best out of iRacing. Start using it now for free at racelab.app. Tonight, also brought to you by the Butt Kicker. Butt Kicker products and incredible immersion bring realism to every game. Feel every nuance until you put yourself in the driver's seat. And by Ninja Trader. Ready to compete against the financial markets? Supporting more than 60,000 users across the globe, Ninja Trader provides award-winning trading software and brokerage services. Ninja Trader is always free to use for advanced charting, backtesting, as well as trade simulation. Visit ninjatrader.com to get started with a risk-free trading simulator and start tracking performance. And just as a big cloud heads over the racetrack, it's worth noting today mostly cloudy skies for today's race. 75 degrees Fahrenheit the air temperature, 108 is the track temperature. Fairly cool when it comes to Sonoma, meaning you may see the pace shuffle a bit, especially with the clouds expected to circulate over throughout this session today over the course of the next 21 minutes.
Yeah, that's the situation here in open qualifying such as this one. It's more multifaceted, I find, than a lone qualifying session. You're having to deal with all this traffic, you're having to deal with potentially getting the draft in all the right places, and like you said, you do have to be concerned about the weather and the track conditions as well. If you catch a cool period like this, then you might be able to put in a little bit of a better lap time than you would otherwise. And there's also an issue of the track evolution as the track gets rubbered in over time as well, because 30 minutes is a long time in terms of that track evolution. So we'll see how things go. We didn't see much improvement in the session lap times towards the end of qualifying at Suzuka. I have to wonder if that's going to be any different here today at Sonoma. But you can see the current order on the left-hand side of your screen. Connor Wagner currently best of all of them, only by 0.5 of a second though.
Look who's in third, though. That is the top AM driver who just pulled off. It's Turner Schroll, who is currently third with a 1:22.2 early on in this session. And that brings us into the conversation of the performance of the AM drivers. Plenty of them have impressed in the opening rounds. Himself has performed well. We've seen Ryan Puchtel do well. But two drivers have earned themselves some promotions up the way. We'll talk about that in a moment. But you see Tyler Campbell for Team Watson Racing look to work his way up the pylon from 6th currently on the board.
Yeah, and well, Tyler Campbell, of course, one of those drivers that is able to, well, has quite kindly shared their Zoom camera with us, and we can just pull that up right about now. What mystery location is he in right now? Because he does tend to have a bit of fun with his green screens. There we go, another grocery-inspired one.
It's back at the soup aisle.
Yeah.
And for those wondering, look at the banner, look at the name, look at the banner, look at the name, and then you'll see the connection why he chose that section of the aisle.
Yeah, I honestly hadn't noticed that before you mentioned it, Justin, so I'm very thankful that you pointed it out. But yes, I do like it when drivers have a little bit of fun like this. I mean, we had a lot of fun at the end of the last race at Suzuka, given the whole sort of maple syrup debacle that we had. So we'll have to see if there's any more fun events here today, as we see Tyler Campbell just come towards the end of his outlap here. This is going to be a flyer.
We'll see how Tyler Campbell does. Currently 6th with a 1:22.3 up on the board as his personal best. Personal best for all drivers, still in the 1:21.9. The early going of the session, track temperature to its lowest it's been. How do you drive this track though, Connery, with this type of car? Because you mentioned stock car racing, that's been a big part of some of the action here over the years. Even when you consider some of the history, this is the track it moved NASCAR did its races to after the closure of Riverside International Raceway. How do you drive it though in an open wheel car such as this one?
Well, at least in these Formula 3 cars, the strategy to approach this was relatively simple. You don't have necessarily the issue of overheating the tyres like you do on some cars, so you're just basically going balls to the wall all the way through here. The main challenge here, though, is sort of the elevation changes, especially coming through the first sector. When the car comes over the crests, it does tend to get a little loose. Less slow in a high downforce open wheel car than it would be in, say, a GT car or a stock car, but it's an effect that you still have to be aware about, and sometimes the curbs can be a bit of a killer here as well if you're not too careful. But apart from those two aspects, I'm treating it like any regular track.
Tyler Campbell still looking to see what he can do. Last time a 1:23.5 was not able to bump up his time. In fact, has lost a spot to Kale Petrie in the 5:98. You mentioned, though, McLaughlin's name, and we take a look now at the TQ Engineering car. Hit a little bit of the dirt. Currently 7th in the M class, and keep in mind, he's one of the drivers to watch out for today, not just because of his strong performance at Suzuka, but depending on how he does in this qualifying in the race, he may have a chance to move to the pro class, according to officials. Two drivers have gotten that chance starting this week, Connery. McLaughlin is on the cusp of that.
I don't think 7th in the AM class is necessarily going to cut it, though. And a big slide at the top of the hill, and a big spin as well for Nick McLaughlin. You can tell he was pushing on that, and that's at the start of that lap, but the bounds have been overstepped, and McLaughlin out into the dirt. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a tow again.
Where's he going? Oh,
Nope.
track exit.
Yeah. I mean, he wasn't
thought
making
it
it real possible, I guess.
Indeed, indeed. And of course, we also have an on-view point when it comes to Carter today. Right now, Carter towards the bottom of the qualifying board, 33rd. James Carter, specifically in the 70 car. Atomic Racing looking to get back on track in what's been a nightmarish season for them so far as a team. They've struggled, Connery, and that's an understatement as a group.
Yeah, they absolutely have. But then again, it is still early doors as far as the championship is concerned. We are round 3 of 10, so there's still plenty of time to get things back on track. However, I think it kind of has to start with a decent result today for them to have any hopes with regards to any form of championship, any good championship placing, shall we say, at the end of the very end of the season. So for James Carter, well, hopefully a better qualifying than 17th in AM at the moment, and well, just marginally off his best time that time around. No improvement for the number 70. He does need to gain on the order of about 0.3 of a second just to improve one place though. So a lot of time still left out there for Carter.
The only two drivers not yet setting a time halfway through this session, Lucio Vargas and Baron Hilton. We mentioned some of the promotions it's worth talking about. One of those drivers who got that call up to the pro class today will be amongst those looking to battle originally from James's class. Leo Larner in the 7 car, 21st currently in the qualifying session. In fact, just up the road, in fact, from Carter. Got that opportunity to move up along with Kevin Santana. They are now members of the pro class based on their qualifying race pace this season.
Yep, they are, and well, I guess that's the reward that you get for doing well in the M class. You might be able to play with the big boys in the pro class, but currently the number 7 last of the pro class in qualifying at the moment. So hopefully he's going to be able to improve potentially not on this lap because he's already well over his best time, but still 13.5 minutes left in the session to be able to climb a little bit further up that timing screen. But for Lung, it's going to be a difficult one, especially considering the pace that he seems to have in this qualifying session. He's got a good handful of AMP drivers that are ahead of him, and now he's a new pro.
Some extra pressure indeed. You have to think about the pressure, though, for drivers such as Sebastian Coffre, who he's seen speed from. He's now at the top of the pylon, Connery. Keep an eye on him throughout this one. The Coffres, in turn, in general, have been quick this season. The luck just hasn't been on the side of them. Michael Coffre, highest of them in the points. Highest in qualifying, Sebastian. So far, who had a DNS to start the season, 30 points last time out at Suzuka.
Yeah, so for Coffre, he's marginally ahead in this session though. Only 11 1/1000ths of a second faster than Conor Wagner. We know how fast Conor Wagner has been in the first 2 rounds of this F3 season. So that is no small feat for Sebastian Coffre, and it does somewhat disrupt the Delta Sport dominance that we've seen in these first 2 rounds. But then again, Delta Sport still P2, P3 at the moment, so with the TQE car of Caballo currently in 4th place.
Was is currently looking to pick up the tempo. We've seen some good pace from him. He hasn't had good qualifying pace in some circumstances, though, with Scott and Martin in the midst of the edges of the top 10 nearly going. So far, when it comes to points scored, 20 points, 19 points to start the season, 32 points behind the championship. Do you see him trying to warm up things for Flyer?
Big wide arc through the final corner, trying to get that exit speed to carry the momentum across the line to start a lap here. And, well, climbing up the hill. This is going to be a particularly tricky section on the first lap of this race. I've seen so many incidents up into there where drivers have gotten a bit too overzealous on the brakes and have taken themselves right across the apex, causing an almighty wreck. Hopefully, that doesn't happen here today, and, well, Caraballo, we're hoping he doesn't do that in the race either. Big off-track, invalidates his lap.
So that forced them to tow and in turn look to reset. Still about 11 minutes to work with up on the clock. And keep in mind, the top 25, when you look at live time and scoring, brought to you once again by RaceSpotTV for tonight and ATVO, it's within about a second for the top 25, Connery. It's extremely tight tonight. One of the closest margins between the field this season.
Yeah, that is absolutely incredible, actually. I certainly was expecting a little bit of a wider margin. We have the top 18 cars all within a second at the moment. That's usually the baseline that we look at here at RaceSpotTV to judge whether a field is competitive or not. And having 18 cars within a second of the leader is very good going indeed. Of course, things do drop off rather significantly towards the bottom end of the field. Lucio Vargas currently the slowest driver that has set a time, and that's 3.7 off of the leader, but I can't judge him too much because I'd probably be around that, if not worse, if I was out there.
You never know. You never know until you try hitting the racetrack, to say the very least.
No one wants to see that.
I do, but Sebastian Coffre wants to see an improvement. Coming around the final corner, you see many drivers still slipping and sliding. Coffre having some draft fed from Ron Clenard. This time around a 122.7 though. Mike taking our flyer to push up the tempo for the 28 machine. With that 45 leading the way, Peter Newhook is also in the charge there. Max Chablis also waiting to get going and try and pick up their draft as well.
Yeah, it's a tricky one here. Of course, you want the draft for these relatively decent stretches of straight road, but it's really going to hurt you in the fast-flowing corners, especially in the S's section, sort of in the mid to latter portions of the lap, where you're really wanting that downforce and having to off the car ahead of you is certainly not going to help. Michael Coffre getting himself up into P6, so that's very good going there for the 140. Only 16 thousandths of a second behind Kevin San Diego.
One Coffre's within a couple 100s now too. 7th overall on the board, absolutely tight amongst them. Still keeping an eye on the 28. See if Sebastian Coffre picks up the tempo. Caleb Petrie now the only car in front. Cone goes flying. Can Coffre fly to the top of the board? Needs to gain 0.2 of a second even to be able to improve from his personal best and get to the pole time. 122.566. That's not going to cut it.
Absolutely not. So struggling to get back to within the sub 122 mark. That's the very front runners have set as their best times at the moment. So I'm just having a quick flick through the field, see drivers that are on very fast laps. Michael Coffre at the moment, he looks, at least on my time machine, to be about half a second up coming out of the final corner. So this is looking like a very competent lap for the 140. Coming up across the line now, 122 flat, and that promotes him up into 5th.
Good lap, a good improvement, and now Michael Coffre into the top 5, keeping up that points haul. We take a look at some of the other drivers zipping around. Talked about Moises Caraballo currently trying to bump up from 4th spot. Seen the warm up a little bit earlier for the 278.
This is looking good. This is looking very, very good to the line here, Justin. Is it enough to challenge Holland?
No.
I thought it was looking pretty good. The last sector times was absolutely fantastic. But doesn't seem to be able to execute that one absolutely perfectly. Must have made a mistake somewhere where I wasn't able to see. But
yeah, 9/10 off the personal best there.
Yeah. So well, I'll take back what I said then. It was looking pretty good for Caballo, but seemingly a mistake on that lap that has put a damper on what was looking like a pretty good run. We've still got 6.5 minutes left in qualifying though, so still time to be able to put a good couple of fast laps out there up onto the board, and potentially, well, there's still potential for some movement in this field.
The driver you're looking at, middle of your screen right now, Ron Clenard. This has to be a major thought. 12th overall in qualifying, 10th currently in the pro class, 3rd in the standings, has had stellar starting positions to help him throughout the way so far. Not the way that the 45 car may have wanted qualifying to go so far. Needs to pick up a lot of time. How about 6/10 to get up to the pole time? As you see, Richard Swindell's all over the track that we're on beside him for a moment.
We're not at the final corner though. 1:22.371, his best lap. Looking good, and it's an improvement, and it is enough an improvement to gain the position over Ryan Putschel. So up into P10 in class for Glenards. Well, actually, he was still there even before the lap, but he's up to P11 overall, I should say, since Putschel is indeed an AM driver. But they're all racing on the same circuit, and they've all got the identical cars, so it's still significant, even though it's not an improvement in class.
Track temperature is rising with 5 minutes to go. Worth noting, Turner Schroll, we've seen him start off strong, he is still 9th. That temperature has gone up 1 degree Fahrenheit in the past 3 minutes. And quickly to touch upon the AM Championship, Schroll does have the points lead, keep in mind, with the victory in class, like 10 points over Fernando Rodriguez. Richard Swindell's that car we mentioned, 3rd in the standings, 13 back. So keep an eye on how things fare out, especially with some of the pro drivers such as Patrick Glenard looking hungry for spots. Speaking of hungry for spots, the 278. Moises Carvalho this time around, 122 flat, not his best though. Still a couple 100s off his personal best, still in 4th, and now drifting his way up the hillside this time.
Carvalho's been the driver that I've probably seen sliding about the most, and again gets it so loose. Coming over the top of the crest there, and he knows that lap is all but done. He pulls to the side of the circuit off the racing line and takes the tow back to the pit lane. He will just be able to get out and get himself another flying lap, so it's not going to be the end of the session for Carvalho, but yeah, it seems like conditions relatively slick out there, at least for the 278.
Keep in mind, as we see more off tracks now for the 278. Let's zip around over to Connor Wagner, 3rd on the board, 121.930 his personal best, 931 to the nearest 10,000, 122 flat this time with no draft help. 51 elected to pull off, looking like most drivers treating qualifying a bit differently compared to some of the previous rounds because of some of the weather conditions you'd have to consider, potentially. As we see now the run through the carousel, Sebastian Coffre still hungry to try and bump up the pole time, last time by a 122.6.
Needs to be a little bit more, needs to find sort of the opposite side of that 122 mark at the moment. There's only been 3 drivers, Holland, Coffre, or Sebastian Coffre and Conor Wagner, that have been able to find laps in the 121s. Haven't seen anyone join them in recent times, although there might be a couple of surprises towards the end of this session as drivers make their last-ditch attempt at improving position. But for Sebastian Coffre, 0.2 of a second off your pole position setting time at the moment that David Holland was able to set. This is looking like an okay lap here for Sebastian Coffre, but whether or not it will be enough to unseat David Holland at the front of this field, well, we'll find out in a couple of seconds.
This time around, it's looking close, not close enough. Our 122 flat for Sebastian Coffre with 2 minutes up on the board. Making us time for maybe 1, if not 2 more qualified laps. In other words, if you are not on the track now, you're likely not being able to get yourself more than maybe 1 flyer, no warm-up on the tires. Michael Coffre, give credit to still, is inside the top 5 still on the board. We've Italy back the machine. And Michael Coffre has had good race speed. It's just been about the luck for him as well this season in keeping the car clean in the midst of some of the battling.
So tough to do in such a competitive series like this, though. Especially if you get caught in that mid-pack. Making a mistake in the first lap, getting cycled back. It's a huge thing to deal with. Coffre into the final corner now. Again, struggling to get the power down a little bit as the tyres simply do not want to grip up on the rear. coming up towards the line. A 122 flat is his best time so far. He improves by 0.2 of a second up to P2. And, well, joins the fellow Kofre in P2, P3.
So that is a 121.8 set right there to be able to get within about 1/10.5 of David Holland's personal best. Holland not coming back out. Sebastian Kofre looking to zip on out. Has one more chance at this. This is off a flyer. This is his full-on charge lap now for Sebastian Kofre. David Holland, who's still in the pit lane, is still at the top of the board. Holland looking confident. Meanwhile, Sebastian Kofre has to check up for traffic as there will end his run.
That is tragic. That is just catching the traffic at the wrong place and the wrong time. There's not a lot you can do about that either. Coming off a flying lap onto another flying lap. It's just the luck of the draw, unfortunately. That has ruined the end of this qualifying session for Sebastian Kofre. But we still have two other Kofres out there still running. Michael Kofre coming up towards the hairpin now at the very back end of the lap. Checkered flag is now out. This is going to be the last opportunity for Kofre. It was an absolutely stonking 121.854 last time. Does he go one better? The answer to that one is going to be no. 123 flat for Michael Kofre. His qualifying session is done. So is Conor Wagner's, I believe.
Yes, indeed. Moises is also done. Caraballo done for this session. Also practicing pit entry in turn, but a few others are trying to complete some of their marks. Tyler Campbell, Ron Conard, Michael Overbay are those drivers who have a chance to complete their laps remaining on the circuit over the course of the next 80 seconds.
Campbell into the S's section. P8 overall, P8 in class as well. He's just ahead of the AM leader. But we know how aggressive AM leaders have been in previous races. Of course, they want to put as many pro cars between themselves and the next AM competitor. So Tyler Campbell will have to looking in his wing mirrors, starting that close to turn roll. But Campbell up across the line.
This time around, a 122.1. That's a personal best. That is 7th best for Campbell. And that is your last qualifier. Out of everybody in the field tonight, 36 entrants here tonight. The rest of the drivers on track. It's practice time, essentially, for them to finish things out. But 30 seconds left to go until drivers will hit the starting grid for tonight's action, Connery. It should be a fun one here in wine country.
Absolutely. It's going to be a bit of a nail-biting start, though, considering that first sector, that very short run into the first real corner at this circuit. I know technically turn one's that slight left-hander, but that's flat in pretty much most cars. But I'm thinking more that climb up the hill into the braking zone of the right. And, well, we'll have to see what the starting grid looks like here in just a handful of moments' time. Qualifying session's now over. We can indeed go over that starting grid for today's event.
It's time to take a look at how the 36 entrants will start for tonight's action here from iRacing's virtual Sonoma Raceway. On the pole for tonight's running, for round 3 of the season, it's David Holland starting things off with Michael Kofre to his outside. Sebastian Kofre starts row 2 alongside Conor Wagner in the 4th spot. Moises Caraballo starts in 5th today with Kevin San Diego quietly in 6th. Tyler Campbell from the soup aisle looks to try and bring things home from 7th, but Juan Kofre starts in 8th. Turner Schroll starts in 9th with Ron Conard, your top 10. Kel Patry, deepest starting position for him in a while throughout the field, with Ryan Puchtel in 12th. Justin Negretti quietly in qualifying went to 13th, with Leo Lern trying to look to prove what he can do in the 7 car in his first run as a pro driver. Max Shapley 15th, Takeshi Kita trying to be Mr. Sneaky from 16th, Michael Overbay, Steve Giori, the top 18. Brett Thurman starts in 19th tonight with Eric Lacio in 20th. Then it is Fernando Rodriguez and Nick McLaughlin not having the best of qualifying 22nd. Joey Tebben, Frankie Arvello, the top 24. Rest of your starters scroll on screen as the rest of the drivers hit the grid. Of note, amongst your drivers towards the back, James Carter in 30th. And only one driver did not set a time in the session, Baron Hilton in the 00 machine, who has left the parking lot. Drivers moments away from the start of tonight's action as David Holland looks to lead things off cleanly once more from controlling the field. The pole has been a talking point throughout the season with the speed showcased by Holland. He has his first pole over Wagner this season. Can he keep it up though with Michael Coffray, Sebastian Coffray and company right there? The drivers are ready. Are you ready? It's time to go racing from Sonoma. Green flag is out underway from Napa Valley. And a good start for David Holland as Michael Coffray tucks in quickly. Top four, in fact, try and tuck in. Moises Caraballo forced up to the high side. Kevin Sandiego off towards turn 2, trying to take advantage for about 5th. Rest of the drivers keep it calm. No troubles outside of drivers in the 20s. Brett Thurman did not get going. That's amongst those who had to tow.
Whoa.
Big crash for second. Off the track goes one of the Coffrays. It is Michael Coffray all the way off into the sand, entering the carousel section. One other car, Sebastian Coffray, has to stop his woe in tow.
That is a big incident down into there. We'll have to take another look at it to see exactly what happened. It was quite hard to see from our previous perspective, but a big moment at the very front of the field. Is it just overcommitment on the brakes from cars behind? Oh, it was. Indeed, it was the Coffrays taking out each other pretty much with an over-optimistic move towards the, I believe it was Juan Coffray.
Juan Coffray was amongst the side-by-side. Sebastian Coffray with the huge contact with the toe. Here's a look at what Juan's seen. Near 3 wide to get through that.
Yeah, so well, the better thing to do here, potentially, is to get the rear view of Michael Coffray to see exactly what car, well, sort of sent it into there and caused that little bit of a mess. It looked like it was the number 28 car. So that's, well, 28 car completely innocent in that. It was the fellow Delta Sport car that had that just completely sent it. Oh dear,
Connor Wagner.
Well, yeah, Connor Wagner. I'm glad someone was able to figure it out here, Justin. We'll take a look from Connor Wagner's view next.
Wagner is still in second, and here's a look. He was in that battle, and then no damage.
Somehow no damage. I am amazed he's been able to get through that unscathed and remain in P2 as well.
Negretti and Lurg have both had incidents in the past few moments as well. Tyler Campbell also hit the back end of somebody's wing, has also picked up some damage in the early going. Kevin Sandiego, amongst all this, is quietly now up to 3rd on track.
Incredible. That is a great start there from the idiot. Just picking his way through on that instant, I would have thought, to try and get himself up into a podium position at the moment. You can see the positions gained on the left-hand side. 3 positions for Kevin Sandiego just on that first lap alone. An ideal start for the privateer.
The reason, by the way, that some of the drivers, Negretti and company, are off circuit in the battle for what was 10th on lap 2, the 66 spun in turns 2 and 3, and collected Max Chablis along with Lurg. They are now out of the race with mandatory repairs, except for Chablis, who just came into the pit lane now, who does have mandatory repairs regardless. So plenty of attrition already for some of your drivers needing good runs in the pro class. As you see how Moises tries to set things up, currently in the 4th position here, already up the 1 spot compared to San Diego's 3. Meanwhile, behind them, Campbell, under pressure from Petrie, who's up 5 positions.
The hard charger working his way through the field and looking very threatening on the gearbox of Tyler Campbell. It's all about the execution from this point forwards, though. You can carry the momentum all the way through this SS section, flick it through the right-hander, and potentially, if you've got a good run, you can send it down the inside on the brakes into the hairpin. The option not there this time for Petrie, but he can still continue to make himself look big in the mirrors of the car ahead.
Indeed. Keep in mind, we're just on lap 4, and some of the craziness has built up aplenty. compared to what we've seen in Japan in the early stages. Race Control did say during tonight's drivers' meeting that lap 1 incidents would be heavily enforced, so keep that in mind for decisions after tonight's action. Still trying to set things up amidst this, Rod Clenard. By the way, the race lead has closed to 1 second. Campbell trying to keep that gap within that 1 second to the 278. And you can see how that pressure can build up here at this racetrack. This one up in towards turn 7, one of your prime passing opportunities, especially if you do this.
Big lock up there for Tyler Campbell. It brings it side by side into the S's section, but Campbell able to keep himself ahead here. It's still not going to be over though. Patry may, if he keeps himself as close as he is right now, have another opportunity, another stab at it coming into the hairpin.
Will we go for the pass? Campbell going a bit defensive. Big defensive. Big send into the braking zone. Big lockup. Patry goes alongside. Battle for 5th, heading towards the start and finish line. Not able to make the pass work. And just like that, there goes that 1 second buffer to Caraballo we talked about.
So intriguing. The battle for the top 5, well, the entry to the top 5 positions. Things being backed up a little bit. Clenard's able to get onto the back of this battle, as you mentioned there, Justin. Let's see what influence he is able to have. But I somehow doubt, considering he's seen everything that's been going on ahead of him, that he gets too stuck into this battle, because it's twice now that Campbell has outbraked himself into the corner and caused him to push wide because of the pressure that Patry is putting on him. So if I was Clenard here, I would just hang back a little bit, because this might get a little bit too spicy.
Trying the high side around this time around. Will Campbell give a bit of space? No, in fact, Campbell runs the line and gives the squeeze back. And now, this is allowing Juan Cofre to rejoin the battle for this top 5 grouping.
Incredible. Absolutely incredible. And, well, the longer this happens, the more third parties that will get involved in this one, because Schroll, our leader in AM class, there he is, not too far away from this battle at all. Soon he'll be getting the slipstream off of back of Juan Cofre. That will just keep him inside of this train. And, well, the pressure's really telling for Tyler Campbell. He's trying to drive the wheels off of that thing, but he's driving beyond his means at the moment here, Justin. And that can really put drivers on edge and, well, results in a lot of mistakes most of the time.
Indeed, and to give a quick case when it comes to Turner Schroll real quickly, keep in mind the team that he's with is second in the team points with how things been playing out early going over TQE and Precision. Reference when it comes to Team Watson, coming off their best performance as a group with 50 points as the Team Watson Racing Machine. Still looks to hold on, no send this time for Campbell and company. Tree starts, maintain patience here. Troll is gaining on this pack with how it's playing out as well, keep in mind.
I doubt Stroll would really want to get stuck into this battle just for the, well, not even for the same reason as Clenard doesn't want to get stuck into this battle. For Stroll, you can't risk that leading position at the moment, so he's probably going to be even more passive about this entire situation than any of the other cars in this pack. So I wouldn't be surprised if he does join this train officially, that he doesn't try to press the issue too much. The leaders of this pack right now are the ones that are attempting to do the battling. I'm going to say I am surprised that Campbell's been able to hold off Patry here. I think that's mostly because Patry has not really converted on any of the opportunities that Campbell has basically given him by going too deep into some of these corners. Patry is being very passive about it. I think a more aggressive driver would make those, well, punish those mistakes a little bit better.
We'll see if there's a chance for him to showcase a little bit of the learning he may have had, though, with all this battling soon. Let's just save and wait for an opportunity to arise amongst itself. Keep in mind, when it comes to Turner Schrill, mind you, he has a 4-second buffer to Takeshi Kita when it comes to the M-Class leads. There is that buffer number 4 car, who has no draft pack currently on the racetrack. So things starting to calm down, coming up to 21 laps to go here in this one. 7 laps complete this time. Campbell more defensive lines. Tree nearly being met by Clenard. All of these drivers stay sandwiched together 7 seconds back of the race leader, with how things continue to play out here, with one of the top teams in this series looking to try and see how things play out when it comes to some of those Delta Sport drivers. Others who are on the trial basis still looking to sort themselves out, such as Patrice, still cannot find a way by.
For some of the cars deeper in the train now, there will come a point where being passive with this entire situation is just going to lose them more time, because you might be more accepting of a couple of laps of getting held up, but if it's going to be potentially until the schedule stops, that's very much a bigger issue. So if Patrice doesn't get this one done quickly, he's going to attempt to the outside here into the middle sector. If he doesn't get this done, then, well, Clenard will have to try and take things into his own hands.
Will he do so, or will Patrice get this done to the S's this time? Back and forth, Patrice a bit of a squeeze off. Campbell out of the gas gave a little bit of a break into 8 and 8A. Clenard now with a chance for hard point by Delta Sport to go for the Chargers. Campbell start to slide the tires. And there he goes, Major Send, Tyler Campbell. Way up into the marbles to give him space. Juan Colfray nearly hits him.
Yeah, that was entirely expected there from Clenard, I feel. He didn't want to have happen to him what Patrice had to deal with behind Tyler Campbell. He needed to make that move as authoritative as possible, and that's exactly what we saw with the big send on the brakes into the hairpin. I'm not sure if Campbell has really much in the tank to try and respond to this one. I'm not expecting him to try and, oh, there's an off. There's a big moment there for Juan Colfray, just a completely unforced error, and he takes the toe.
So Juan Colfray in the 91 machine from the top 8 is out of the car and out of the race. Let's see what happened here once more. Was at the back of the train for the battle for 5th position. Nice and calm, remember, avoided the trouble with near 3 wide as we're on the first lap stack up into the carousel portion of the track. Bye-bye.
That's what I was saying about the curbs can be a problem here. Out onto the exit curb. Car got completely and utterly unsettled, and, well, that's the result of it. Car down on towards the pit lane and not going to come out, I would have thought, by the end of this event. Meanwhile, battle for P3 has all of a sudden gotten so much closer. Caraballo, 0.3 of a second behind Kevin Sandiego.
How will this play out when it comes to the 278? Looking for a podium times this season. There is a bit of traffic, and Max Shapley up the road, who is finally back on track after the mandatory repairs. Not going to impact the battle, though. A little bit of a slide from San Diego. Moises Caraballo still cannot take advantage quite yet, win for the passing zones.
It's very, very long left, and I absolutely love this corner, just descending down the hill. It's a medium to high speed corner, so you're on the limit of grip in terms of the tires and the aerodynamics. And it's important to get a good exit out of there as well, because it allows the run down into this double right-hander where we've seen a couple of overtake attempts already. This is such a driver's track, I get the feeling, especially in that first sector where it's just so enjoyable to be throwing it into the corners amongst the hills. The second half of the lap, you can take it or leave it. I'm not too much of a fan, but the first half, incredible.
Such a intriguing track in general when you consider things with the racing history here in the Sonoma Mountains when it comes to this track. 160 feet of elevation change. It's not really talked about too much. That's a fair bit of elevation change, Connery, for one track.
And the track is short as this one in the grand scheme of things. I know it's technically we're racing on the long layout. However, we're still doing 122s in Formula 3 cars, which is still pretty quick as far as lap times go. So, but yeah, to have such elevation change is really nice to have. I mean, we have a similar circuit on the calendar with the elevation change in the form of the Red Bull Ring. However, way fewer slow speed corners at that circuit than here.
Trouble, Nick McLaughlin off the track in the 62. And not what Nick needed when it comes to what's at stake for this race. Take a look at the replay. Was running top 13, ninth in his class. Not the greatest of days for Nick McLaughlin. And it's gotten worse.
Wasn't even the exit curve that time around either. The car just broke away from him through the exit of the corner. We've seen so many drivers have trouble with the rear traction, especially in qualifying as they were trying to push their cars beyond the limits. But as the tyre wear comes into play in these Formula 3 cars, it's not a massive effect in terms of lap times. We're having to more worry about the change of the balance in the car rather than the speed, because as you very well explained in the previous race, Justin, the fuel coming out of the car actually makes the cars faster more than the tyre wear makes the cars slower in these Formula 3 cars. But you still have that balance change of working those rear tyres a little bit more than the fronts.
Exactly. And some of these drivers have definitely looked like they've been struggling a little bit with the balance. Well, with the changing conditions. The track conditions, mind you, are cooler than they were in qualifying. So there is more grip with some of the clouds. Never know when it comes to one long stint of sunshine, one cloud, and that track condition could change from 100 degrees Fahrenheit like it is currently down to around, say, 95 that quickly. And you have to be prepared for the rapid change, right?
You absolutely do. I mean, in cars that have more significant aerodynamics, you're also looking at the wind as well. But 9 miles an hour, not the biggest issue at the moment. But if that was a little bit higher and we're starting to swing around, that could change the balance from corner to corner as well in some cases. So it's, yeah, like you said, the track temperature is the more significant issue here at the moment, because we're in the summertime here in the northern hemisphere. That sun going to beat down a lot of heat onto the circuit once it peaks out from behind those clouds. I think some of the drivers are very thankful that we have a mostly cloudy conditions here at the moment. If we were clear, then my words, it'll be very slippery out there.
We might see a lot of the spinnings, possibly. Yeah. That can pop up at Sonoma in some cases. It's worth noting the 598 and the 45, Petrie and Collard, they are closing in on fourth. Gerbal has lost ground over the past few laps to San Diego. As a matter of fact, 8/10 last time by. That has nearly put him within grasp of the 598 and 45, within 2 seconds, in fact, of them. As you see just how squiggly a couple of these cars are getting.
Yeah, Cabao getting the back end out through the double right as well. Can't afford to be doing that too often. I mean, it's going to become worse and worse as those rear tyres heat up, lose their grip, and towards the end of a stint. Speaking of, we are a good, just a couple of laps before splitting this race 50-50. So now the drivers are starting to think potentially about the pit stop window.
Next time by halfway through this one. The race lead has fluctuated throughout this entire run, by the way, from about half a second down to, or up to, should say, about 2 seconds. Race lead has shrunk down to half a second because Wagner, remember, has been the quicker of the two compared to Holland long run. Keep an eye on that as things progress here in this one. Still keep an eye on things throughout the pack. This is the battle going on among some of the AM drivers. Ross Cato, Richard Swindell's third in AM points entering today after the early going for Indy Autosports, looking to try and bounce back after a rough qualifying session. Well, Cato, with a stock car background, looks to try and showcase what he can do. As you see one car off, that's Max Chablis lap traffic.
Yeah, and this is going to be a more significant issue the longer we go. Lap traffic getting involved even before the first set of pit stops. It's going to get even more complicated once those happen. But Swindell's taking it in his stride at the moment. Alpha 10th in the AM class with Ross Cato. Cato taking a little bit of a slightly different line through the long left that time. I mean, that's the luxury of some of these corners. Sometimes the alternate lines work out just as fast, if not faster, than the normal geometric racing line.
Absolutely. That race lead, if we can head towards that direction, is about to get interesting. It's down to about 0.2 of a second in some of these corners now. Wagner is on it, and it's been the case like this each of the races. Holland's been good at the start of the events. Wagner's been able to reel him back in by pit stop time.
Well, that's part of the strategy game in these cars, isn't it? It's just making sure that you have that performance throughout the run and not trying to push things, push the boat out too far so early in the stint that you have nothing to try and fight with once we get towards the end. And well, Wagner does seem to have kept his tyres potentially in a little bit better condition to have a little bit more pace towards the end of these stints. Wagner, though, there's the tricky pit entry on the left, and I've seen so many instances into there, Justin, where I think it's sort of similar sort of situation as at Circuit Shields Field. You carry more speed into that final corner coming down into if you're coming down into the pit lane than you do if you're taking the corner normally. So I've seen so many people who want to come down on towards the pit lane, rear-end cars that still want to stay out on the circuit because of the difference in braking point.
And you have to make sure you time it up absolutely with how tight the walls are. It's not going to be a Bobby Zelensky situation where, if you remember, he drifted at one time in a stock car here. You can't really do that here. You miss the corner brake, your car is destroyed. And that could cause calamity for everyone, strategy-wise, if you make a mistake on the entry today.
Well, we've already had a couple of cars come down on towards the pit lane. We have the number 99 of Michael Blaise, privateer, coming down in as, well, our first scheduled stopper, and he's already gotten the service done and is now getting himself back out there on the circuit. We also had Brett Herman come down in just 2 laps ago. So the window is open. I would hazard a guess that most of these guys will want to try and push the fuel tanks as far as they will go, though.
That's been the trend throughout the season. We are at about 23, 24 minutes in through the action for Retford's sake. Pit stop time for Blaise was a 5-second stop, so expect pit stops to be very lightning fast. Want to be able to contend for the victory. Big drift from Wagner trying to keep up with the 18. Holland keeping the pressure up as they slide their way up through the hillside, heading towards the carousel section of the racetrack. Takeshikita into the pit lane this time by. Also bringing Guillaume Paven, who was from 27th to 13th before the pit stop, by the way, the 649.
Incredible performance, and, well, he'll cycle him back temporarily because of the pit stop, but a couple of hard charges over the course of this race. Once everyone's gotten themselves their pit stop sorted, it'll be very interesting when we can pull up the positions gained graphic to see exactly who all of the hard charges are. It's a lot of them will have been able to pick themselves through on the instance on the first lap to gain a couple of positions by default. But P1, P2, 0.2 of a second between them on the way into the hairpin at the end of the lap. And, well, Conor Wagner going to need to pay for a couple of cones at the end of this.
I don't think he needs to pay for them. It's more so just trying to find them as he launched them over the fence there with how fast they were going against the cones. Ron Conard is into the pit lane, so the team's window is open, at least. That is a Delta Sport car who just peeled in from 7th. So that mark is in. By the way, for Paven, we mentioned the biggest mover. He took tires, and is the only one to do so far. Ryan Punchtail in as well. Looking up towards the front. And here's the tough thing. If both of them come in the same time, Connery, oh boy, you better hope you hit your brakes just right.
Yeah. Rule number 1 of racing. Don't hit your teammate. That's the... and even worse, don't hit your teammate on the pit lane. But Conor Wagner making a little bit of a mess of that first apex. Able to pick it up before the second, though. Balance of the car still very, very twitchy, it seems. And I don't think Conor Wagner's the only driver that is dealing with a bit of a twitchy car at the moment. The cars, in general, have seemed to be a bit on edge today here at Sonoma. Coming towards the end of lap number 18, though, does Holland head his way in? Does Wagner head his way in? We saw a Delta Sport car come in already. There's the deviation in the strategy, Justin. Holland has come in as Wagner stays out.
So Wagner going for the overcut, Holland going for the undercut. Who will follow them in is the question. At least one is chosen to. Moises Caraballo is in. Tyler Campbell coming in this time as well. So the top runners come in with 10 to go up on the board. How do they go for their pit stop marks, though, is the question. Wagner, San Diego, Patry keep going. Turner Schroll, the M leader, also in. Holland into the box.
Waiting for that fuel to go in for the end of the race. Back out there, 4.9 seconds on his stop. Not the fastest we've seen today, but still competent. Rejoins the circuit and, well, like I said at the start of the broadcast, into relatively clear air. He does have one car a little bit further down the road, but I think Holland will be happy about his situation at the moment. But Conor Wagner going at least one extra lap. And, well, if there's a car where the overcut's going to work, it's going to be this one.
Especially with the speed showcase to close in. It's just been about the marks, right? See how Wagner comes in towards those marks. We are at about that approximate fuel mark towards the edge of the tank. 9 to go. Will Wagner come in? Yes. Wagner into the pit lane, but plenty of space to roll through. 50 miles per hour down to the cone to the speed limit of 45.
No passing lane, no fast lane, slow lane situation here in the PRL F3 series. So he's going to try and drive through all of the pit boxes, which I don't like seeing, even if it is not a rule. But either way, I think it's just a bit too cheesy for me. But Conor Wagner down into his pit box. Of course, he'll go fuel only as well in this situation. I'm not going to go and see a differential in that one. Here we go, off the pit lane. Where's he come out in relation to Holland?
Race up the lane. Wagner comes out on track in front of Holland. The overcut works for Conor Wagner like a treat. David Holland has dropped to second.
Great call. Great call there for Conor Wagner. He knew he was faster towards the end of that fuel stint compared to David Holland. Why not stay out there, try and get that overcut done? You know those cars coming down on the pit lane, by and large, are not going to take tyres. That's been the go-to strategy over the course of this season. We have seen some people try it. We've seen one driver try it in this race, as Guillaume Potvin took tyres. You mentioned when it happened, Justin. But, you know, higher fuel load, same age tyres, obviously overcut territory.
Absolutely. Big opportunity. Wagner had a half a second pit stop quicker in the box. Michael Overbay, who was top 10 before the pit stops, out of his pit stall and out of the lane, had contact with Takeshi Kita. Overbay, mandatory damage repairs. Kita still going. Overbay out of the race, who was in line for one of his better runs of the season after a slow start to this season. And keep in mind, it's right after the pit stop here you see Connery. A normal stop right, but here's the tough thing at this track. The pit exit is where the blend mark comes in, the left of the braking mark for turn 1 and 2. And if you don't come out cleanly, it gets dangerous. This is the AM lead, mind you, that he comes out next to, and boom.
2 into 1 doesn't go into turn number 2. Overbay finding that one out the hard way, and, well, the damage terminal with the suspension being so exposed pulls it off to the side of the circuit, takes the tow back to pit lane. We've had a good couple of cars retire over the course of this one. We've had, well, Overbay come down on towards the pit lane, John Almanar come down in, Michael Cofre, Max Chablis. We have Eric Passio, Han Cofre, Adam McDonald, Fernando Rodriguez, Justin Negrete. We have Neil Young, Sebastian Cofre, who was so competitive in qualifying today. And of course, Joey Tebben, commentator here for RaceSpotTV, having a poor start to the race as well.
See how some of the traffic management is currently being held up with and trying to be dealt with for some of your top runners. But mention the last point there, AM lead. Mr. Sneaky, who was in the midst of that contact, is still going for the AM lead. Turner Schroll had a massive lead before the pit stops, but a 2-lap undercut by Kita has helped propel him that 4-second gap he had to the 4 car.
This is great to see for Takeshi. Saying that no matter what, overcut, undercut, you can make both of them work. For Takeshi Kita, though, I would have thought the undercut working would be more down to getting himself into clear air after the stop, because he was getting a little bit held up, and look at how much time it has gained him. He gained about half a second in terms of stop time, yes. Scholl didn't have the greatest of times on pit lane, but it seems like the great deal of it, of the time gained, was Kita being absolutely fantastic on his out laps after his pit stop.
Here's the tough thing. Kita needs to keep on executing, though, and it has struggled since we poked in here. Kita, if anything, slided around would be one of the best performances for an Atomic Racing driver all season. And he's done this twice in a row now, where he started mid-pack behind a lot of his AM competitors, boom, ends up being inside the top 3 or top 5 in the class by the end of the night.
Needs to work on his qualifying performances then, I suppose. Both of them into that hairpin. Lap 23 or 28. This race is going by relatively quickly, Justin. I don't know if you feel that way as well. We are very, very close to signing, sealing, and delivering this event, this 3rd round of the PRL F3 series. And we've got race lead, overall race lead within a second. We've got AM race lead getting towards a second.
So plenty to keep an eye on, especially with how things circulate over the next 5.5 laps here. It's been a treat, to say the least. Steven Ritter's not having a good treat. Is off the track, was inside the top 12, and nearly came back on the track and nearly bumps into a car.
I don't need to say anything more about rejoins. I've been quite famous for them in terms of calling them out, but we'll see what happens to Steven Ritter's. It's that very tricky turn 2, and back end out. He's not the first one, probably won't be the last to do that. And well, it almost happened in the exact same way to a driver coming up on that.
That was McLaughlin in the same corner he spun out before.
Crazy, crazy stuff. We'll get the view on board with McLaughlin. So he would have, actually, I don't know whether he would have actually seen the spin from Ritter's ahead, considering the terrain here, but we'll see it. Yeah, sees nothing, sees a puff of smoke, but has the exact same issue pretty much, but he was able to save it.
Just in time as well. That could have been disastrous. Van, by the way, also had a spin during that replay sequence, is back on track. Van is 20th. Looking at the midst of how things are playing out, though, on track, the battle is on in the midst of the traffic. Patry and Clenard, and there he goes! Clenard spins around, hitting the grass. The 45 drops behind Campbell. Off and away goes Clenard after the spin.
Big spin into the double right-hander. Not usually a place where we see significant incidents in terms of solo car problems. We'll have to see what goes on here for Rod Clenard. Right on the back of him, because I suspect a rear lock. No, he gets on the dirt a little bit towards the wall. There is a little bit of dirt there, right up against the concrete. He might have dipped 2 tires in it.
Looked like it as well. Or at least a viewpoint on my side, but my goodness. Able to get back going, though. Still inside the top 7. Back your top 7 all-pro driver. Schroll still the top running AM car, 8th overall. Now coming up to 4 laps to go. Some of the drivers ready in this one, down to 3 this time for the leaders. Moises Caraballo still looking to hold on to fourth, though. Petrie wants that position, though, for the valuable points. Lap traffic is ahead in James Holland.
Indeed it is. Let's see how it factors into this battle. It can be your friend or it can be your foe, depending on the exact situation. The best of drivers will try to influence the situation to work out in their favor. Of course, not always successful, but you just have to take what you're given. Through the S's section, it's always a very tricky place to catch lap traffic, and I think Carvalho's going to be impeded here, massively impeded through the fast right-hander. Is this the opportunity for Petrie to make it happen into the hairpin, as Carvalho has to take that ultra-defensive line down towards the inside? He stays ahead, gets good drive as well.
Traffic finally moves out of the way there, too. That lost him a bit of ground overall, but no harm, no foul for the position. Down to the final 3 for them now. 210 still to get a big break. Petrie nearly gets up to the gearbox.
So close between these two, getting towards less than 0.2 of a second as Petrie hunts his prey, but can Carvalho have anything left to try and make that F3 car just as wide as it can be in these last couple of laps? Hiller Petrie doing a fantastic job over the course of this event in the 598 car. He'll have a couple opportunities, I feel, in these last couple of laps. Does seem to have the pace advantage over the 278 in front.
Trying to go a little bit tighter on the exit. A bit of a slide as a result, though. Petrie having to regroup. Heading off towards the hairpin once more. 2 to go this time around. Chance for some valuable points on the line to move up this one spot when it comes to Petrie in the championship hunt. Of note, Campbell and Quinard are also tied in their battle, separated by a few tenths, as they pass by all the cones in the middle of the racetrack. 2 more circuits around, about 5 miles to play with.
Carvalho much better in the back end of that lap than Petrie was able to manage, so extends the gap up to half a second as they start the penultimate lap of the event. But look at how much later on the brakes Petrie is. My word, he just gobbled up that half a second.
That was like he pretended he wasn't even there for a moment. Here he goes again for a sin, all the way to the gearbox again. Trying to pressurize the mistake. Caraballo nearly slid up into 1. Looking to hold on still. 3 car lengths the gap for the carousel. No major lunch yet this time around. Will there be one, though, heading into the run off to turn 7? Here comes the draft. Petrie taking a poke, a peek, a block from Caraballo holds on. Coming up to a lap and a half to go.
Lots of pressure being piled onto the back of that rear wing as far as Caraballo's concerned, but he's standing strong for now. Hasn't made the critical error. He just needs to continue to not making that critical error for another lap and a bit. A big slide for Petrie. Another little look potentially into the hairpin, but he's a little too far back. Sector 1 is where Petrie's been particularly strong as we go on to the final lap.
Final time around, Connor Wagner holding on to a 1.3 second gap, still keeping an eye on the battle for 4th. Caraballo still trying to hold on, has a bit more of a buffer. All this as well, too. The M-Class battle is close within half a second between Schroll and Kita. Multiple different battles coming in for the final half a lap or so.
Petrie really driving it hard here on this, through the first sector for the final time. He's had big opportunities in towards the double right-hander. Turn 7 complex, shall we say. It all relies on the run out of here, though. Petrie doesn't quite have it unless it's an almighty send. Now he just needs to set up for the move into the hairpin, the final corner of this race.
One more chance for them. Keep in mind the AM lead is getting intriguing as well, but the overall lead is coming to a close. Connor Wagner went for the overcut by 1 lap and made it work like a charm. Connor Wagner wins at Sonoma. David Holland second, Kevin San Diego looking to close out third, Caraballo looking to close out fourth. One more time around, Petrie can't get there. Behind them, Campbell trying to hold on for sixth. Quinard looking to rip it away in a drag race. Side by side between them for the sixth spot, it's Campbell who holds on for sixth. But behind them, the M-Class Lynn is online as well. Schroll looking to hold on. Turner Schroll does it again. He wins it at Sonoma for the M-Class.
Incredibly close finishes up and down the field. We're not totally done though, but I don't think there's going to be anything as close as that one. 0.469 was the gap between Schroll and Kita for the AM race leads. But in terms of other positions up and down the field, the one between Campbell and Clinard was only 31 thousandths of a second for P6 in the end, with that big drag race towards the line. Incredible stuff. Great job for Campbell to hold on. He did that throughout the entire last lap, by the way. We were more preoccupied with what was going on a little bit further down the road for P4, but I think I might give Campbell the replay he quite rightly deserves here, because it was a mega defense on that final lap.
That was not an easy defense from Quinard here. Let's take a look. See what Campbell had to defend here. It's the final corners or so of this race. And watch.
This is the final sector of the penultimate lap. So this is the battle with Clinard here.
So here comes lunge one. Look at the crossover though. This is where that pressure you're seeing, Connery, really kicks into full gear.
It is, and Tyler is going to be exemplary in this defense there, positioning the car perfectly on the run up the hill to keep Clinard behind. Both of them get a pretty decent run out of the second turn here. We'll see how the rest of this lap turns out, because you can see how much faster Clinard is through some of these corners, but somehow Tyler has been able to keep himself ahead here on this lap. A little bit of a puff of tyre smoke through the right, but Campbell keeping himself ahead. This replay is almost entertaining as watching it live, I suppose.
Yeah, and then Clinard, keep in mind, amongst those who was very aggressive in this section forward to try and pass Campbell before. Not as easy though when the points are on the line. Forster on the high side, not going to work as we've seen the trend throughout the day unless you keep it side by side for the S's.
Yeah, through the S section is not really an overtaking spot. All you can do is follow as closely as you can and make sure you get the run required in towards the final corner of things, and that's exactly what Clinard did, but the execution just still wasn't there, and Campbell was able to keep himself ahead. It was a big drag race towards the line. There's the final attempt for Clinard. It was more an up and under coming through the final corner, and it was so close to being successful, but by 31,000, Campbell still holds on.
What a battle.
Incredible.
What a battle. Bernard finishes 7th from that. The tree finishes inside the top 6. One of his best finishes of the season for him and his team. But with that, take a chance to look towards your unofficial race results, where it was a battle and then some for plenty of the drivers. But it was the Wagner and Holland show once more here at Sonoma. It was Wagner over Holland by 1.1 seconds to win Wagner's second W of the season. Kevin San Diego picks up the podium, 14 seconds back in third. Moises Caraballo holds on to the top 4. Gail Petrie finishes in 5th. In the drag race, it was Campbell over Quinard, the top 6. The first spot for AM class in 8th overall was Turner Schroll, winning over Takeshi Kita. Kita closed up a 4-second gap after the pit window. Ryan Puchtel, give credit to him, quietly 3rd on the podium and 10th overall. Then Giori, top 5 in the points entering today. Likely to slip back after 11th today. Nick McLaughlin, not the best of turns when it comes to his run. 62 finishes in 12th. Frank Urvello quietly 13th. Richard Swendels recovers from some rough moments to finish 14th. Steven Ritter's after his spin, 15th. Michael Blaze, 16th. Lucio Vargas in 17th. Newhook, Carter, Aven, the top 20. 21st goes to Brett Thurman, 1 lap down. Right behind the first those in Baven. Then it was 22nd Ross Cato, then James Holland, the 23rd spot. Then your DNFs for the evening include Michael Overbay amongst those who did not finish, but John Alomar did, along with Fernando Rodriguez. The Colts race of Michael and Juan, 27 to 28th, Max Chablis 19 laps down 29th, Eric Palacio in 30th. 31st goes to Adam McDonald after a crash midway through the run. Justin Negretti in 32nd after the early crash with Sebastian Coffray involved in the opening laps kerfluffle. Joseph Tebben, Baron Hilton, your 36 entrants here today. Connery, a lot to discuss, to say the very least, when it comes to that. And it was a fight, to say the very least, amongst your top runners. Connor Wagner picking up the W on the track. Your thoughts on how things played out here tonight?
That was actually a pretty enjoyable race as far as I was concerned. Usually, at least from my previous experience with Sonoma, it doesn't tend to give the best of races. However, that was certainly one of the better ones that I've seen. Just by virtue of how competitive the field is, how close the field is, especially once we take Wagner and Holland out of the equation, I suppose, who ran away with things at the very front of the field. It was great seeing like Takeshi working his way through the field, amongst others as well. So that's as far as races go. I'm certainly not complaining about that one. However, we do have an interview, and it was with the driver that we saw the big old replay of the final lap, Tyler Campbell, who held on to P6 there, Justin, by the skin of his teeth.
Yes, indeed, and Tyler Campbell, remember, is the one with the viewpoint from the Campbell soup aisle. Campbell, you've been able to hold on now for the top 6, your best run of the season. How are you feeling?
Oh, absolutely exhausted. My leg hurts. I swear I got vibrations still going up my hands from all the bumps here at Sonoma, but overall it's amazingly fun. I've raced against these guys before, both especially Caleb and I've raced with Rod in real life. So, it was just so much fun being out on the track with those guys, and I just really enjoyed it. It was it was very close. I honestly thought I had lost it there in the last corner, but luckily enough, I was on the inside there coming to the line.
Was about to say, how difficult was it to defend with Rod, not just in that last battle, but also you had Kale Petrie at one point with Quinard, both trying to pass you early.
Yeah. Luckily, it's not really easy to pass here. There's not a lot of long straights. There's not much straight at all, if you can call it that. And so as long as you hold the inside, you're okay. Obviously, the over-under is very strong with how wide these corners are. It's mostly just struggling with grip. I mean, the track is very hot. At least it cooled down a little bit for the race, but if you can keep the inside line and be strong under braking and really get the drive out of the corner, it's not insanely difficult, but obviously it slows you down. As you saw, Caleb ended up getting past me, and then Rod took his chance, and I had a feeling that was going to happen. That's really the reason I was defending so hard so early, is I knew that, two teammates, they're gonna try to freight train me both at once, and lo and behold, that's what happened. But yeah, no, it's fun. I wasn't expecting it to be this close in terms of the overtakes that were made, but yeah, it was very difficult to keep them behind. They're mega quick.
Fulton Park Circuit next up on the schedule. That's the international layout with no chicanes. Your opinions on that track?
Honestly, I don't have a lot of experience on that track in this car. It's gonna be interesting. It's surprisingly bumpy, Olton Park is, but it's also got something that this track has the opposite of: camber in the corners. Every corner at this track it's like over a crest or it's off camber. Olton Park has some very good camber in the corners, so that should allow for maybe a little bit more of an aggressive setup. But it's going to be really interesting with the without the chicanes there. You're going to have a really nice run up the hill, and that's going to be some interesting passing opportunities, I think, and hopefully not too much Shadow Realm existing there.
Thank you very much, Tyler, for the time. And real quickly, what's your favorite can of soup that's behind you?
My favorite can of soup that's behind me. That's a tough one because I'm not a fan of like single soups by themselves as much. I would probably have to go with tomato soup. You put a little bit you make some little macaroni noodles. You put the macaroni noodles into the soup, and then you add some like Parmesan on top. And you're really special if you make yourself a fancy grilled cheese as well. But There's so many good ones. I mean, you can cook with all of them. I think that's the whole point. And I don't know if you knew this. I have an really old Campbell's cookbook from like the 50s. It has there used to be cream of shrimp. I guess it was in the freezer section. No idea. Crazy.
I didn't know that either, but that's really cool to have that retro cookbook. Thank you very much for the time. We'll let you get cooking for next week's race.
All right, thanks, guys. Real quick, I want to thank Team Watson Racing, National Racing Network, and Martin Sports for their support. Wouldn't be here without them.
Once again, that's Tyler Campbell coming away with the top 10 today, 6th overall in the pro class. And as mentioned with them, the next time out, we head to Alton Park in Connery. That should be a fun one as well when it comes to that one. As mentioned, the international layout without the chicanes, that should be an intriguing race for some of these competitors.
It should be, and well, I do like Alton Park as a circuit. It's certainly one of the more enjoyable British tracks to drive. When it comes to overtaking, though, it can, in some instances, come at a premium. However, I have seen a good couple of races that have bucked the trend as far as that's concerned. It's going to be interesting not having the no chicanes layout. So no chicane down at Britain's, no chicane down at Hislop. So it's basically a straight old run through that sort of back end of the circuit. So we'll see how that turns out. Of course, less places to go wrong, I would have thought, because those tires on the inside of those chicanes, they're not very movable. Let's just say that. So now, since we don't have to go through those chicanes, maybe our rate of attrition will be a little bit better. But I'm certainly looking forward to it. July the 14th here in the Precision Racing League Series. You certainly don't want to miss it.
It should be a fun one here for Formula 3 competition powered by VCO. But with that, time to say goodbye. And we'd like to thank you once more for tuning in for tonight's coverage from iRacing's virtual Sonoma Raceway. Congratulations to your race winners Connor Wagner and Turner Schroll, winners of the Pro and Am classes respectively. For my co-announcer Connery Maddock, as well as our producer in Connery Maddock, I'm Justin Prince saying so long and enjoy the rest of your evening. You've been watching RaceSpot and VCO from Sonoma.